I know that. And now I finally have the branding and the polishing to go with that. And the response I'm getting now is what I've always been waiting for. Like, people would always tell me, Hope, you're like the best kept secret. I don't want to be the best kept secret. That's like the worst, best compliment ever.
So it's a compliment, but not really.
Yeah. And so I started realizing these were some of the reasons why.
The Career Challenges Podcast, a collection of stories about overcoming professional hurdles and learning lessons the hard way. Thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Kyle Werkerly, Certified Ghostwriter. This is the Career Challenges Podcast, episode 11, and I have with me Hope Zvara. So, Hope, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on, and listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. Hopefully this will be the best episode yet.
I'm sure it will.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. For those of you that maybe don't know anything about me, which I'm hoping there's some new listeners on, my name is Hope Zvara. I'm actually from Wisconsin, and I am the creator of the Hope process. Now, my previous life, I'm just actually stepping out of, I am a 17-year yoga teacher. So I have been in the yoga world for most of my life. And I found yoga because I was knee deep in an eating disorder for most of my teenage years and into my early 20s. And yoga found me at a time where I didn't really know what a future was going to look like for me. And I stepped into my first yoga class and my life completely changed. I had felt and experienced things that I didn't even know were possible, like breathing and your mind being clear. I didn't know that was possible prior to yoga.
Definitely.
And so I found myself going down the yoga path, and I eventually became a yoga teacher and opened a yoga studio and led teacher trainings and just kind of embarked down the fitness and wellness path. And little did I know that path was going to steer me back to what my thought was that I was going to become, which was a speaker and just really someone to inspire others. And so now I've been using what I call my yoga toolbox and sharing my story and my journey with the people along the way that I meet on podcasts like this and on stages and in webinars and anywhere in the grocery store. I mean, I will strum up a conversation with just about anybody, but my main goal is to really inspire people to never lose hope. To realize that no matter how hard your life gets, we're always going to come up against challenges, that there is always purpose in all things if you choose to see it. And that's really what I'm looking to do now with my life. And I use my Hope process and what I call the 3 Bs, breath, body, and belief. And I teach people how to utilize their breath, and sometimes even just that their breath is there and how to tap into it on a very basic level. And then I teach people how to utilize their body, some simple things like posture. Most people don't know what good posture looks like, and that can completely change how the world views you and receives you just by changing your posture.
Yeah.
And then I talk about—
I can attest to that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. You walk by somebody and they could be, an incredibly knowledgeable, talented person, but when their shoulders are slumped forward, their head is forward, they're never looking up. I mean, their pants are down around their knees. You're not going to really take them very seriously.
No.
And that's no disrespect to their intelligence level, but how you present yourself to the world is how the world receives you.
Mm-hmm. I can remember my sister, this was back when I was she had first gone to college. She was 3 years older than me, so she went off to college first. And she came back home, and I don't really know when it happened, but I was walking differently. And a lot of people said I looked gloomy, like you're always hanging your head down. So I would raise my head and pull my shoulders back. And part of it too is I wanted to look tougher. I'm not a very physically imposing person. And, at that time I'm like, I need to look like, don't mess with me. And so I was kind of walking more with my head up, my shoulders back. And my sister came home for some holiday or whatever. She goes, Kyle, you're different. I was like, really? And I was like, oh, I look tough now. Yay.
But that's just it. How we present ourselves does affect how people receive us. And it's also little things. I teach people how to move more during the day. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you're like me, but if I wake up without, oh yeah, I'm going to go to yoga, or I'm going to exercise for 60 minutes at 7 o'clock at night. I have 3 kids. That never happens.
Yeah.
And so it's about adding more movement into your day, and that changes your outlook. That changes how you feel. That changes how you feel about yourself. And then that third B is the belief. And I'm not talking about faith or religion or anything like that. I'm talking about your core beliefs. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, I didn't realize actually till a few years ago, even though I was making all these positive changes in my life and moving out of an addictive mindset and moving out of depression and anxiety, my core beliefs were, I'm dumb, fat, stupid, ugly, nobody likes me, I'm unworthy. And I unconsciously didn't realize these were the beliefs I was still holding on to. Even though I didn't on the surface believe them, deep down, I was still living like those were real. And so really helping people tap into those things and helping them kind of release them and acknowledge them and move past them so that they can live the life that's available to them. And really, we're the only ones holding us back at the end of the day. And so I just want people to be able to kind of unleash their power that they have to live their best life.
Awesome. Awesome. So you do a lot of speaking, and I was looking on your website. You've got, events coming up in the coming months. So where did it all start for you? What was your very first speaking engagement, and what was that like?
To be honest with you, I kind of come from an untraditional approach to where I am today, and really it was the yoga mat. My first yoga class that I taught was a platform, and it was an opportunity for me to share. And so for me, when I teach yoga, it's not just put your right foot forward. Now, inhale, arms overhead. It's a song. It's a dance. It's a engagement with my students, taking them on a journey. And so the yoga mat was the very first place I ever shared with people that I was suffering and struggling with depression. And the first time I ever shared with people that I had anxiety and that I had an eating disorder. And I was using my own life experiences on the yoga mat and giving them intuition into my own life and giving them opportunity to grow in my own insights that I had. I was sharing those on the yoga mat. And my students would always say, I came for the physical, but I stayed because of the mental and the emotional. And that was really my first stage. And I didn't realize it then, but I've spoke on tens of thousands of stages in the last 17 years. It's just now my stage is a little bit different. So it's been a really interesting approach. And so for those listening, if you have a big goal and a big dream, step back. You might already be doing it and you just don't realize it.
Oh. So you said your first stage was the yoga mat. So when did you actually step onto a real stage?
Yeah, great question. So I started teaching at fitness conferences and speaking and kind of utilizing my yoga in more of a workshop lecture setting in probably about 2007. And then I started having kids and I kind of took a hiatus and realized I didn't want to just be in the fitness world anymore. Like it wasn't just teaching people how to move their bodies. I knew I was meant for more and I knew I wanted to give people more. And so about 4 years ago, I decided I was really going to take that next step forward. And I wrote my first kind of life story as a speech. And let's just say it wasn't bad, but now that I understand how to be a good speaker, it's like, okay, that was like way too much, not balanced out. But you got to get your feet wet the first time.
Yeah.
And it was 3 years ago that I actually spoke on a large stage in a speak off in Colorado, and I came runner up. And I think that that's a win for me. The person that beat me out had been a speaker for 10 years already and really knew his stuff, and he was great. And that just really helped me realize that, you can do this, Hope. Like there are people that want to hear your story and want to hear what you have to offer the world. And that really sparked something within me where it was like, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep staying a yoga teacher? Are you going to keep teaching yoga classes? Which there's nothing wrong with that. I love teaching yoga. It's an aspect of me that I will always probably do in some capacity. Or are you going to take that leap and decide that there's more and go after it?
Yeah, that reminds me of, I know it's going to be really nerdy here for a second, but have you ever seen Doctor Strange? Oh, well, there's a great part. I'll try not to ruin the movie, but there's a great part where he's talking with, the guide. There's always a guide in these stories, and he's trying to get the use of his hands back. And she kind of tells him, you can use magic to do that. or you can, use your magical abilities to fight evil and save the world. And he gets stuck on, I can get my hands back. I can go back to being a doctor, because he was a world-renowned doctor and all this fame and glory. And she goes, yes, but the world will be lesser for it. And I was like, that's so true. And that was what popped into my mind was, this Tilda Swinton kind of character saying, well, you can do that, but the world will be lesser for it because you're choosing a smaller stage. And I thought that was great. Anyway.
No, and that's a great analogy. And I think for a lot of people listening, we all are going through very similar things. We're all going through transitions and challenges and changes in our lives and in our businesses. But one of the things that I've learned through many, many, many mistakes is that, you either have to choose to stay where you are, or you have to choose to step forward. You can't do both. And for several years, I was straddling this line of, but if I change, I'm going to make people unhappy. If I stop owning my yoga studio, I'm going to upset people. If I stop doing this, then I can't do it anymore. And I was holding on to the idea that I had to teach yoga classes in the exact setting and format that I was. And actually just this past Monday, I announced that I'm closing my yoga studio after almost 14 years. And it's a decision based off the fact that if I want to move forward, I can't stay where I am. True. And it was something I have been toying over for the past 2 years. Do I, don't I, do I, don't I? And straddling that line and finally coming to the place where it's like, okay, I have to let this go because I have all these opportunities over here, but I can't do both. Since Monday, since announcing that, I have had even more opportunities present themselves, and even more opportunities present themselves for me to be able to teach locally in the area that I'm in a way that best suits me. And that was my biggest struggle, was how do I teach and where do I offer it? But I want my control back over my life versus being at the mercy of all my students, every day of the week. And as much as I love them, and I guess that's my learning lesson for people. If I can save you a hardship and struggle, for you to realize that it's always going to be better, because you're not going to be where you are. Because guess what? You can always go back. I can always open a yoga studio again. I know how to do it, but I can't move forward dragging something with me that's not meant to come with.
I understand. So you mentioned earlier a speak off. I've heard of riff offs. I mean, I've watched Pitch Perfect and they do a riff off. So what's a speak off? Is it kind of like that?
Yeah, it's kind of like the American Idol of speaking.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I know Toastmasters does a lot of them. This was with another company, but it was an opportunity for me to finally bite the bullet and get my stuff together and go, okay, if you're going to do this, Hope, you're going to have to get yourself together. What is your keynote going to be like? Everyone should have a 5-minute keynote. Everyone should have a 1-minute keynote so that you can pitch yourself appropriately. And it really forced me to look at myself and go, okay, what is my story? What am I actually trying to help people with? What is my offer? And what do I want people to walk away with? Because I don't know if you've ever heard speakers before, anyone listening, they're usually one of two things. All they do is talk about education, educating you, information. It's like word vomit all over you. And you walk away going, mind blown, holy cow, that was a lot. Or they just tell you a really sappy story the whole time, and you're like, you didn't teach me anything. and so speaking is really a balance of that. You have to meet them at an emotional level. So you have to present yourself in a way that I'm like you, but I figured something out. So let me help you, because I've gotten where I want to go, or I'm the way where I want to go. But you also have to teach them something, because if you're claiming to be the expert, you better darn well teach them something. But Definitely. Most people talk to this audience, but they never teach the audience. It's very different. And really it's a balancing act between that and figuring that out and learning that and learning how to hone in my craft has been one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because learning how to speak on a stage helps me be able to better communicate what I do. Because when someone asks you what you do, or you ask someone else, it's usually like, I'm a coach. Well, that's great. Well, how do you help people? Well, I help them with nutrition. Well, what makes you special? What makes you different? What's your proprietary process? And becoming a speaker, I'm not saying everyone should become a speaker, but what it did help me do is it helped me hone in on my skills, and it helped me language myself better. It taught me how to present myself better, and it taught me how to get to the point. Like, get to the point, people. Like, tell me how you're going to help me, and what you're going to do for me, and if I'm right for you. And it really gave me the confidence to be like, okay, this is my story. I'm going to own my story. I can't change my story, so it can't be wrong. And this is how I do it. And that was one of the best experiences that I've ever had for my business and for my own personal growth.
Awesome. So, the speak off idea just really caught my attention. I'm like, I'm just really curious. You stand up on stage, I assume, and do they just give you a topic and you got to go right then into a speech?
Well, it depends on, there's lots of different kinds of speak-offs, but the speak-off that I was in was you come with your story. Come with your story. We had 5 minutes, and you were graded essentially on making sure you hit certain points. You know, did you talk to the audience on an emotional level? Did you teach them something? Did you embed your offer? Did you have a closing statement or a closing story of some sort? How were you on stage? Did you just stand there and shake your leg like a rabid dog? You know, did you have your hands in your mouth? You know, did you actually use the stage? Did you just stand still and not move a muscle? Like, how did you present yourself, and how did you respond and engage with the audience? And so those are all the things that you were kind of essentially graded on or critiqued on. And it was for the fact that was my first real speaking experience. I'm glad it was, because it really helped me go, okay, if I can't take this type of criticism, I'm not going to be able to withstand my dream and my big goals of helping people on a global level. Because the bigger that you get, the bigger the naysayers become. You know, the bigger the haters come out. They come out of everywhere. And it's usually because they're not happy with themselves, which is something that yoga's taught me. But that was really helpful for me to be able to go, okay, here's constructive feedback. Either I'm going to go home and I'm going to make it better, or I'm going to say, oh, I can't do this because they didn't like me. And that was really, really helpful for me. And it just really kind of set me down a path to go, you know, I want to do more of this. I want to inspire more people. I mean, you could hear a pin drop when I was speaking. It was, I love inspiring people. It's what I was born and put on this earth to do. And find your gift, find your talent, and don't compare it to other people. I did that for years as a yoga teacher. It was like, oh, I need to teach like her because her classes are full. Oh, I need to work with him because, you know, he does this specialty, whatever. And I yo-yoed for years trying to basically clone myself into other people when I thought they were successful, not realizing that I had my own following and I had my own unique approach that people wanted. And the more I tried to be like everybody else, the more I just confused other people. I mean, maybe people listening have been there before. It doesn't matter what you do. You don't have to be a yoga teacher to try to be like everybody else. I mean, the world is supposed to be a bunch of different people all coming together to celebrate each other.
Wow. Awesome. Okay, so you're teaching yoga, you're using the yoga mat as your stage to do speaking. Has yoga kind of become your core theme, or has it been incorporated in a lot of your talks?
That's a great question. And so in the last couple of years, what I've been trying to do is, most people that know me, they will like, oh, Hope the yoga teacher, oh, Hope the yoga studio owner. And I've been really trying to step away from that. And the only reason being is I want people to be open to new ideas. And for people that maybe are like, yoga's not for me, I assure you the style of yoga that I teach is never going to ask you to stand on your head, do 500 push-ups in a class, you know, anything like that. It's much more of a functional approach as far as learning how to live in your body again, and learning how to use your muscles in ways that you never used before, in your breath and your mind. So the way that I take yoga and extract it into my teaching and into my ways that I work with people on a coaching level is I take the methodology of yoga, I take the experiences of yoga, the breath work, the meditation. Yoga has a whole philosophical side on how to live. And so really taking those aspects, I actually just spoke at a state of Wisconsin event just last Thursday. And after my keynote, one of my breakout sessions was there's no I in team. And I took, it's called the yamas. And so I took the yamas in yoga philosophy and I applied them to how to be a better team player in a company, in a team setting, and just really taking the whole philosophy of yoga and how we offer self-respect to ourselves, how we create observation, just different aspects, and applied it into a group environment. And so that's really what I'm trying to do for people, is digest it, break it down, easy bite-sized snacks, whether it's try this pose while you're in the elevator to stretch your back, or do this one move while you're sitting in your chair at your desk or in your car to better enhance your life, to help you feel better. Because we all know when your body hurts, it is a path to nowhere land, where all of a sudden you're angry, you're mad at the world, you start eating all the ice cream and chocolate and junk food in sight because you're like, oh, I feel like crap and the world sucks and I hate my job and my kids are awful and my marriage is awful, all because your physical body is so unhappy. So really just helping people and kind of taking the yoga and breaking it down and making it more easily digestible. And hey, if you want to know more about yoga, I have an online studio. You can practice with me anywhere. And so really just making it more accessible to people in ways that they maybe wouldn't otherwise think, hey, this is yoga, but it is.
Wow, that's awesome. I never would have thought of it that way. So your target audience, is it businesses, small businesses, or just those health-centered events?
Great question. And so it's kind of twofold. So I get hired out a lot for companies and corporations to do what I call my employee stress to workplace success seminar. It's teaching these types of principles, but in a work environment, in a work setting. And then I do a lot right now in the grief and addiction recovery space.
Oh my gosh.
My story really resonates there. The tools are really usable. Yoga saved my life. Yoga is the reason why I am in recovery to the capacity that I am, where I'm not. I was told when I went to outpatient treatment, best case scenario, I learned to function on medication to get through the day. That was what I was told. And I decided in that moment that was not going to be my future, that was not going to be my life. And yoga, every time I came to the yoga mat, it was an opportunity for me to feel. And I spent my whole life trying not to feel. That's partly why you wind up with an addiction, because life's painful and you can't deal with stuff. And so you use substance. I was using food. People use sex, whatever it is, work. We're all addicted to something. And yoga was this amazing experience of kind of going like, okay, let's pull this layer off and see what happens. You're safe. You're in a safe place, Hope. Nothing bad's going to happen. You're on a yoga mat right now. It's okay to feel. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to, love and not love your body simultaneously. And then I would kind of work through that. It's like, okay, let's peel away this next layer, and then this next layer, and then this next layer. And it just continued to offer me opportunities where I eventually realized the yoga mat, for not just me, but my thousands of students that I've helped over the last 17 years, it's a mirror for your everyday life. And I think we all need a mirror in life.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. It's one of those things you don't realize it until you actually do it. And it's like, duh, I should have been doing this all along, and taking that time to really reflect on who you are in the moment. And, for a long time, your story kind of sounds like mine, which is amazing, that mirroring effect that, I was not dealing with things. Mm-hmm. And, you got to realize, okay, this is hurting me and the people around me. And I have to find a way to constructively reconcile this with how things are happening now. So, it's a great story. I love that. So you got into speaking and you committed to, man, I am firing on all cylinders right now.
It's okay.
So you wanted to get into speaking and do that more, standing up on a stage instead of from yoga mat. So what was your first pitch for a speaking opportunity like?
That's a great question. So one of my first speaking opportunities that I took on was actually with a MOPS group. And so it's like a mom's timeout group through a church in my area. Actually, a friend of mine got me the speaking gig. He was already a speaker, and he's like, hey, I have it in with, this whole network of MOPS groups, 200-mile radius. Do you want in?
There you go.
And I was like, sure, let's do it. And so that was kind of my first stage. And It was amazing. It was, I don't know if I shared this, but before yoga, I had 1 year in college, 1 year, woohoo! And my intention was to become a public speaker, and I was studying theology. And I guess I found my career, or I found my calling, but I just had a different path to get there.
Oh, wow.
So the part of the message in that, I feel like, is never judge how you get to your destination.
Mm-hmm.
And be open that sometimes we feel like it's taking too long, but it might be preparing you for something. Without yoga, I wouldn't have my Hope process. Without yoga, I wouldn't have my toolbox. Without yoga, I wouldn't have thousands of students across the US that are loyal fans of mine. And now I have the opportunity and the base to go and teach and speak almost wherever I want. And I think that that's fantastic, and to be able to reach a broader audience. So never judge the process that it takes to get where you want to go, personally or professionally, because like I said, everything does happen for a reason, whether you want to believe that or not. My whole thought process and needing to believe that is, my husband and I lost our first daughter. And shortly after she had passed, I looked in my bathroom mirror and looked at myself in my eyes and decided that I'm either going to slowly die, or I have to find something good in this. And so it just sent me on a whirlwind of going, okay, there are opportunities in everything, even tragedy, even horrible tragedy. What can you learn from this? My daughter has given me so many blessings. She has also given me an opportunity to reach more people by sharing her story. And I think that that's a great thing. So we all have a message. Don't judge your message.
Definitely. Have you read Chip and Dan Heath's The Power of Moments?
I have not.
Oh, it's a great book. They have other books as well, and that was going to be another question I was going to ask you. But at the very end, because they talk about how you can kind of engineer moments to have these emotional impact on people, and they talk about different ways to do that. And of course, they have a ton of stories to highlight that and as examples and to give you ideas. But at the very end, they have a special section specifically on moments of trauma. And that spoke to me as well, because I also lost a child. My wife and I lost a child, and that also set me on the path I'm on now. And they were talking about how the trauma, as horrible as it is, there can be good that comes from that. And they were encouraging in that section. And I remember reading that, and I was at a job, and people were around me, but I just started crying. And I thought, I can't believe that, these words that people wrote into a book, and they didn't really, they didn't have me in mind, but they're connecting with me on a deeper level. And I was like, that's just amazing. And it just reinforced what I already believed about books and writing and telling stories. And so I was like,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, going on books, since I already brought that up, I was going to try and bring that up later, but your branding, to really set yourself, the Hope process, the 3 Bs. Can you explain to me how that came about?
Yeah, absolutely. About 4 years ago, I decided I was going to take a big plunge financially and in my business, and I enrolled in my very first mastermind. And it was $10,000, and I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But I was like, if I was playing small for a really long time, and just kind of, I was never in the black, never in the red, just kind of always just kind of straddling the line. I could pay for all my bills, pay all my expenses, but I'm like, I know I want to play on a bigger level. And so I enrolled in this mastermind, which turned out to be a flop. And the girl, now she's finally, gotten what had come to her. And I mean that in a nice way. But again, I met some amazing people because of it that now I've done business with on multiple levels. But so again, everything happens for a reason. But one of the things I did get from her was, we had a group event one time in Miami, and she kind of provoked in me like well, how do you do what you do? And I never thought about that. All the years I've been teaching, I never thought, well, how do I do what I do? What do you call what you do? I don't know. I call it teaching yoga. But if you want to be more than teaching yoga, what are you going to call it? And it never occurred to me. And one of the gals there was like, why don't you use your name? I'm like, well, duh, of course I'm going to do that. But what am I going to do? And the whole process, helping others Simply Excel was born. And
Wow.
it resonated with me and I loved it. And then prior to that speak off I did, I was asked, how do you do what you do again? You
Mhm.
need to tone it in. You need to hone it in. And most of the time from what I learned was you need to kind of wrap it around 3 to 4 points, nothing more than that. It gets to be too much for people, your process. And so I was like, okay, what do I do? And I started to reflect on how I taught people, what people always commented about after my classes or my lectures or my workshops. What did people say to other people when they referred me? And it kind of came down to 3 things: breath, body, and belief. And putting myself into a polished kind of, I don't want to call it a box because I don't mean that in a bad way, but
Sure.
it helped me zone in my talents. It helped me create a path, and it helped me create a language for myself so I was consistent, because that was one thing I never realized prior to kind of wanting to go bigger and go on a bigger level was I would just pick whatever colors I wanted for flyers all the time, and it'd be different fonts, and I kind of use different language, and how I would describe myself would be different all the time. And finally a business coach was like, "Oh, you can't do that. People won't know who you are. They will be confused." And it never occurred to me. It never occurred to me that the whole branding, people don't want to invest in it. I invested in having someone actually take all of these concepts, listen to my ideas, research my target market, and it was a custom designed logo. It was the best investment I ever made. Listening to me and what I wanted, I told her colors I wanted, and she's like, "Honey, I'm sorry, but you can't go with those colors because what you're talking about and your demographics of your audience, the dark earth tones are too heavy. You need to be lighter. You need to be more vibrant. You need to be more bold. You need to be more uplifting." And I hated it at first. I was crying. I was so mad. I was like, "He doesn't know me. I'm not." Oh, I was so angry. And I sat with it. And she was right. I responded with my ego. I responded out of fear. And I get so many compliments on my website, on my branding, on my logo, on my if that is one thing where if you're in business and you're hee-hawing and you want to go get a logo done on Fiverr, make the investment. Invest with someone that actually does it, that understands branding. It will be the best investment that you ever make, because people can already feel who I am just based on my business card. And that's what you want. You want people to be able to resonate with you and relate with you on some level, or at least be intrigued enough to go, "Huh, what's going on there?" And that kind of goes back to the whole posture. When you enter a room, if you're saying you're an expert or an authority and you're walking in, shoulders forward, head down, phone in hand in front of your face, and kind of stutter walking in, that doesn't exactly scream authority. And I'm not saying that you have to be a Fortune 500 CEO to be an authority figure. I'm not. But I do know I know my craft. And I know I can help people with what I do in my scope of genius. I know that. And now I finally have the branding and the polishing to go with that. And the response I'm getting now is what I've always been waiting for. Like, people would always tell me, "Hope, you're like the best kept secret." I don't want to be the best kept secret. That's like the worst, best compliment ever.
So it's a compliment, but not really a
Yeah.
compliment.
And so I started realizing these were some of the reasons why. Because people were getting confused in my messaging. People were getting confused in how I actually help people, because I didn't know how I helped people. I was everywhere. I wanted to help people in every way possible, because I was going to be darned if I was going to let a tiny opportunity slip through the cracks. Well, I got news for you. The more honed in on your craft and your audience you are, the more you will attract other people that are not in your audience and in your zone of genius, because you are so clear on what you are doing. And I am living proof of that. And I cannot tell more people that if you can get in on that zone of genius, you will attract all the opportunities you want and then some.
Mm-hmm. So you keep mentioning zone of genius. Where did that come from?
Zone of genius? I don't know. Just kind of my own terminology that I found that, what is my expertise?
Mm-hmm.
What is my craft? And I really struggled with calling myself an expert for many years because I felt like that was I felt arrogant because, again, my whole belief system, going back to that, what I talked about, I didn't believe that I was worthy to be an expert. I didn't believe that I was worthy to be good enough of other people that had degrees and were really, famous and worked and lived in Hollywood. And I mean, I live in Wisconsin, people, but I live in Wisconsin, there's some amazing people here, and there are, and that doesn't matter. And so I was limiting myself with limiting beliefs. And as a result, I wasn't allowing myself to be the expert in my field the way other people were viewing me. I wasn't even allowing myself to view myself that way.
Wow.
So what's your zone of genius? What lights you up? What gets you excited? Like, what just comes so natural to you? The second I stopped fighting that, it was like, oh, it's supposed to be this easy? Okay.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I asked about the zone of genius, Josh Steinley, he's a marketing guy out of Salt Lake City, Utah, I think. And I've seen him use that before on posts on LinkedIn, and he's got books coming out too. He has one coming, something about LinkedIn mastery. I'm trying to remember what he called it exactly. But anyway, so he mentions that zone of genius as well,
Nice.
but also that it kind of echoes, or I don't want to say it this way. Let me say it another way. There's also Simon Sinek, and he, start with why. Did you ever?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so he's pointing out that, you've got your skills and everything, and you know what you do and how you do it. But once you tap into the why, then it really connects all that, and you can really, go across more, and you can be that leader that people want to follow. And he kind of, hints that when you do that with your branding, you become that leader through your branding. And so, start with why and everything. And so those popped into my mind when you mentioned that. I'm like, I wonder if she read that in a book somewhere. But it's obvious that you came up with that yourself. I'm like, that's awesome too.
Oh, thank you. But that's exactly it. Like, why do you do what you do? What's the passion behind your purpose? Mm-hmm. What's the passion behind your project, behind your profession? Like, what wakes you up every morning? For me, it's, I don't want anyone to ever have to struggle the way I struggle, to mm-hmm. feel like there is no hope for them, to feel like they are 900 times down in the ditch and they just can't get up for that 901st time. And I want them to know that, like, they can do this. I'm here to help. Like, I want to help make it easier for you, because no one deserves to struggle the way that I did. And then, you've lost a child too. You understand it is a dark place. Mm-hmm. And if you can come back from that, and understanding that grief is just a period in your life, and you never stop grieving, but it changes. And if you can ride that wave and see the goodness and the beauty in that, my daughter has given me so many gifts because of her life the way it was, that I don't think I would have gotten if her life would have been different. I'm grateful for her. I'm grateful for what happened to me. I'm grateful for the experience that I had with her exactly the way it was. And it was because I chose to take that horrible experience and try to find the good in it. Because what's the other option? Stay in pain my whole life. And I think so many people out there choose to stay in the pain, because sometimes even pain is comfortable and familiar. It's why we stay in addiction, because mm-hmm. it's familiar. You hate it, but you love it at the same time. And so many people are stuck in their business, stuck in their job, because they hate it, but they love it, but they love to hate it because it's comfortable and familiar, and they love to complain. And if they're not complaining, what do they have to talk about?
Mm-hmm. So, good point. Yeah, it's easy to get stuck in that cycle, and to think, okay, this is my life, and this is how it's going to be. And I talk with people about that too, and it's like, I just want you to see that you don't have to live this way. So,
and I think for me, speaking, one, I love to speak. I love to be on stage. I love to use my voice. I love to talk. But for me, speaking is a platform and an opportunity for me to share my story and to share my talents. And I want to inspire 1 million people to help them realize that they should never lose hope, and that there is purpose in all aspects of their life, and that they have opportunities in front of them. And speaking and getting on stage and doing podcasts like this are opportunities for me to share my message and for people to hopefully leave being inspired and going, maybe I am going to go to that yoga class. Or maybe I am going to speak to my spouse and tell them I'm not happy. Or maybe I am going to take that night class. Or maybe I am going to apply for that job position. Even if I don't get it, at least I took the chance. Or maybe I am going to, whatever, travel or get a divorce or whatever it is. But so many of us are unhappy. And newsflash, the opportunities to become happy are usually right in front of us.
Mm-hmm. True. Wow. This got really, really deep here.
Sorry, I didn't mean for that to happen.
No, that's great.
I just totally kicked over this box of stuff right by my foot. So this is what happens. I get so passionate, and so I apologize. I just hijacked the time here.
No, that's great. This is exactly what I want to do in every episode. But also, when you get into that really deep conversation and you just want to sit back and digest everything that's been presented, and it's like, wow, this is great, and I want to hold on to this and really think about it, but then it's like, well, where do I go from here? What's the next question for this interview, so I don't sound like an idiot?
No. But, can I pose something to people?
Sure.
And so we've been kind of talking about stages. It kind of goes back to stages, which I love. But I think one thing people also need to know listening to this is maybe you want to be on stage or maybe you don't, but there are opportunities to be on stage all the time. Mm-hmm. And you meet a new client, that's a stage. You're talking to someone that might know somebody to introduce you to maybe some future business or maybe a workshop gathering or an opportunity, that's a stage. Mm-hmm. For you to share your story and someone says, what do you do? That's a stage. So if we start looking at those little opportunities as stages, and I didn't do that, I made that mistake for 15 years, and I wish someone would have told me that. I've blown so many opportunities to get ahead in life and to make connections with the right people and be able to get my message out there and be able to teach on different platforms. I blew those stages because I didn't look at them as stages. I was like, here I am wasting my time with this person, or here I am why do they care what I do? Or I didn't know how to explain what I did, and so my message wasn't coming across clearly. So look at every opportunity that you get to talk about yourself, or you get to talk about what you do, or you get to have a conversation as a stage, because that might be the gateway stage for you to get where you really want to go.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Great point. So, on your website and in the questionnaire, you mentioned Mother Trucker Yoga. So where did the name come from? I'm curious.
Yeah, so about a year and a half ago, I started a company with my former partner called Mother Trucker Yoga. And this is the honest, the truth story. He was from Illinois, and he and I went to a local business mixer event in my town, and my husband is in local politics, and he was like, hey, hon, I want you to come with. I know a lot of the people in the area. I'm like, okay, great, I'll come. It's a night out, awesome. And I stand at this table, and there's this guy here I've never met before, and we strum up a conversation. He's in trucking, I'm in yoga, and initially I was trying to pitch him to teach yoga at his company, which I was familiar with the company. And he's like, do you do yoga for truckers at all? And I was like, come again? He's like, no, actual yoga for the truck drivers. And I get pretty extravagant, and I like to joke around, and I literally throw my hands up in the air. I stamp my feet down, and I'm like, Mother Trucker Yoga. And I was joking, and he was laughing. And he looks at me dead in the face and goes, that's genius. And sticks his hand out and says, want to start a business? And I looked at my husband and I was like, what do you think? He goes, do it. And my husband's that's not normally his response. He's like, oh, let's think about it for 5 days and then run the numbers and process all of that. And he literally looked at me and was like, you should totally do it. And I shook his hand. I literally met this guy 10 minutes ago, and I shook his hand. We swapped business cards. He called me the next morning and is like, you're serious, you really want to do this, right? That was in November. And by February, we were filming yoga videos in a 2018 Freightliner truck in Minnesota. And we had a live online platform for people done by March. And we launched at our first truck show in Louisville, Kentucky last year.
Wow. So is that still going strong then, Mother Trucker?
Yeah. Yeah, actually it's going pretty good. I've been working on, again, you gotta work things for a while. Very few things happen overnight, which I've learned finally in my many years of business. But I've been nursing a contact now for about maybe 8 months, almost a year. And I finally landed a partnership. I don't want to share all the details yet, but I landed a partnership with a very large truck stop chain. And I'm really excited about the opportunity. So it's awesome because it's a very untapped market. So I'm kind of leading the market and being able to kind of write my own way as what I want health and fitness to look like. There are a few people that have attempted some things, but not necessarily on the scale or the level I'm looking to do. And yeah, I'm really excited. I love it. I love the truckers. I love working with the companies. I love all the people that I've met with it. And I've been able to cross over my own brand and offerings into Mother Trucker Yoga for even more bang for their buck and even more opportunity. So it's just been a really, really great experience.
Awesome. Awesome. So, that makes me want to ask, what else is in the works for you in the future? What's next? Because I know you can't say specifics about this new thing, which, of course I want to be like, well, tell me more.
I know, right?
But,
right?
So what else
tell
is...
me to sign contract. I'm like, oh, I better wait.
Yeah.
But as
Don't
far as
jinx it. Don't jinx it.
Yeah, as far as Mother Trucker Yoga goes, my goal is right now I'm building a lot of relationships. So really trying to work with other companies that are doing either similar things to me or in the trucking world and offer products or services that would complement what I do, and really being able to network and really be able to help other people. That is one of the business lessons that I have learned in my life, where the more you help other people, the more it helps you. The more you try to do it all yourself and be the best at everything and be out on top all by yourself, one, it's lonely, but two, you need people to have your back. You need other people to believe in you as much as you believe in yourself, and vice versa, to really get ahead. And so that's one thing that I'm really working on in the trucking world, and just continuing to put out new content for our online subscribers and work with companies and foster these partnerships that I've developed with people. As far as my own profession is, like I shared, I'm closing my studio, but some of my big things on the roster is I would like to be able to eventually actually write my own book. I have many yoga manuals out and many fitness manuals out, and I've wrote for other people's books. But I would really like to now be able to have the time, because now I will, to actually write my story and embed my process into it. Something where I can really not only inspire people, but give them tools that they can go home and actually apply to their life through what I've learned up to this point, through my addiction, depression, anxiety, losing a child, yoga, all of that, and just really offer people that hope in the written form.
Wow. Well, that sounds awesome. It sounds like you've got so much happening and that's about to happen.
Yeah, it's like that brink of okay, you nurture things. I've been nurturing some things for a really long time, and now we're kind of seeing them come to life and come to fruition. And I think that's one learning lesson for a lot of people in business is, I'm going to butcher the saying, but it's kind of like you stop one day before, you stop just before, the beauty comes to bloom. And how many times do we do that in our life? You should have picked up the phone, and then the next day your parent passes away. Or if I would have only just, gone in and said that one thing, or waited just a little bit longer, or whatever it is, and being willing to withstand that. And that's something that I'm sometimes is almost a character defect for myself, where it's like I hold on too long. But many of these things I've been willing to nurture for a really long time and do for free for a really long time. And now they're finally starting to pay me back tenfold, and I couldn't be happier.
Wow. Well, that sounds awesome. And I wish you the best. I think that's going to be awesome.
Can I ask you, what do you have on your horizon?
Well, obviously more episodes of the Career Challenges podcast. This is episode 11. I've got 3 more people scheduled to interview, and I think about 3 more after that who have expressed interest. They filled out the questionnaire. We're just trying to schedule the interview. But also I have ghostwriting clients that I'm working with. I have 2, 3, I think I have 3 meetings just in the next 2 weeks with potential clients,
Great.
people who've reached out to me and say, "Hey, I want to talk about ghostwriting." So I have that coming up, which is really exciting. And then I think that's it for me right now on the professional front. But as far as my personal life, my wife and I have been really trying to stay in shape and run a lot. And she's doing this Camp Gladiator thing, which is like a rigorous group training thing that you can do. And so
Cool.
she's got me roped into that as well. And we're trying to stay in shape because we had our second girl. And so she's, wanting to get back in shape, and that's really been helping. And I'm really enjoying it as well. I really like the running aspect. It helps clear my head, for all the stresses in life as well.
Well, and a great bonding experience for you and your spouse. And I think so many people, it's so easy to lose yourself in business and
Mm.
lose touch with your partner, but they're kind of the backbone. And if you don't have that backbone and that connection with them, and that's something I've learned with my husband, those relationships and our relationship has only gotten stronger because we both made it a point to always make time for each other. And we've been able to withstand many storms personally and professionally because of that. So I love hearing when other people, it's like they're keeping themselves healthy and whole, but also those important relationships healthy and whole. I think that's so pivotal to also a successful business.
Yeah. It is also important to knowing that they see what you see. Maybe not like
Hmm.
in total clarity that you do, obviously.
But they support it.
Yeah, they at least support it, and they understand that it's not like an obsession. It's not like, well, I just want to do this to do this. It's, I really feel it's going to be good for the family, all of us together. And so, I really appreciate my wife. I'm grateful for her every day. And she's beautiful. She's beautiful too. I keep
I love
telling
it.
her every day as well.
What's
So,
her
yeah,
name?
Kelly.
Kelly. Awesome.
Yeah. So, and what's your husband's name?
His name is Brian. So it sounds like we have similar spouses as far as, my husband is my rock in many ways. I was just talking with someone today. I'm like, I'm the balloon in the relationship and he's the rock. So he's taught me how to be more like a rock, and I have taught him how to be more like a balloon. So
That's really deep.
so yes, I'm very grateful for him. We're high school sweethearts, and
Aw.
without him in my life, I don't think I'd be where I am, but it's been really awesome to grow with someone in so many different aspects of life over the last, we've been married 13 years coming up in September, and I'm just so
Awesome.
grateful.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're working on year 11 right now. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Once you get past that 10-year mark, right?
Yeah, it's really important to make it that far. So, all right. Well, Hope Zvara, thank you so much for being on the podcast. There's a lot of great information here, and I'm not going to go digest it all.
No. But you can find me at hopezvara.com if you want to learn more, zvara.com. So definitely check me out over there. And just, Kyle, thank you so much. This has been absolutely fantastic.
Oh, and just real quick, I should have done this as well. Is there any speaking engagements that are coming up for you that you want to mention and highlight?
Yeah. Actually, I am going to be in Utah at the end of June. I'll be doing actually a foam roller and myofascial release training. So you can hit me up in the Salt Lake City area. And then I will be back in Utah in September at Movara Resort, and I'll be leading a yoga week there. And then I will also be in October in New York at their National Recovery Conference there. So you can find me in a couple different places and check me out live, or you can just hit me up and say, hey, I really want you to come to my area, and we can make magic happen.
There you go. Well, that sounds great. Well, so thank you again, Hope. We'll close this out a second time for joining me on the Career Challenges podcast. Would you like to be a guest on the Career Challenges podcast? Visit thecareerchallengespodcast.com to find out how you can share your story. Eager to share your story with a wider audience and enhance your brand? Visit weckerlywriter.com. That's WECKERLYWRITER.com to discover how you can begin your author journey. What are you waiting for?